All right, what is up, Algebra peeps? This is our Chapter 2 review video. This hopefully will help you, A, know what is going to be on your test for Chapter 2, and B, feel comfortable with the skills and working the problems out that will be required of you. So I'm going to be going through Chapter 2. Specifically, I'm going to be on page 121, that Chapter 2 review. And so if you want to follow along, go ahead and grab your book, page 121. If not, you can just follow along on the dry erase board that I have here, and just make sure you feel comfortable doing these things because they will be required of you tomorrow. So the first thing you're going to need to know is ordering positive and negative numbers from smallest to greatest. So for instance, you'll be given a set of numbers. Let's say it's -6, 8, 0, 4, -1/2, and -10. Okay, so you'll be given a set of numbers, and you will have to order them from least to greatest. So you'll need to know -10 is the smallest value because you think about your number line. So you have that number line there, 0 is here, -10 is going to be way over here, and then of course the 0, and then positive. So -10 is going to be first because it's the smallest value, and then you will go to -6. It looks like I'm just crossing them out, so I know what I've already used, and then I'm gonna go to -1/2. That one's done, and then 0, and then 4, and then 8. So again, just knowing how to order them from the smallest value to the greatest value using positive and negative numbers. Okay, that'll be what's in 2.1. Also in 2.1, you will more than likely be asked, you see the bottom of page 121 there, it says for the given value of A, find -A and the absolute value of A. So for example, it says if A is 3, if A equals 3, you need to find -A and the absolute value of A. Remember, absolute value, it's the variable or the term in the two vertical parallel lines there. That's absolute value. And as a reminder, absolute value makes anything positive. It makes a negative number positive, keeps a positive number positive. So if A is 3, then -A would be -3. And the absolute value of A would be still +3. So your answer for this particular problem would be -3 and 3. Okay, so again, just make sure you are familiar and comfortable with that. All right, I'm looking on page 122 now. In 2.2, you will need to add real numbers, and in 2.3, you'll need to subtract real numbers. So I'll kind of hit both of those together here. So for instance, you'll need to know that -2 plus 5. So -2, adding 5 or going right on your number line, that's going to give you +3. You'll need to be able to do stuff like that. You'll need to know that -6 plus -4, how to solve that, knowing that when you were adding a negative, you were actually subtracting. So that would be -6 minus 4, which -6 minus 4 would be -10. Again, visualize that number line. If you're at -6, here's my 0, here's -6, and I'm subtracting, I always go to the left. So I go back 4 more, and that would bring me to -10, okay? So knowing how to add and subtract real numbers is going to be important. Not only is it going to be important to know that when you add a negative, you are subtracting, like that one we just did, -6, what was it, plus -4, I think we just did, knowing that that is -6 minus 4. You will also need to know that subtracting a negative is like adding, okay? So for instance, if it was, let's see an example here, on page 122, how about number 23 there? It says -20.3, and yes, there might be decimals on there, so be ready for that. -20.3 minus -14.2. So that would be -20.3 plus 14.2, okay? So you're at -20.3, you're going to add 14.2, so on your number line, you're going to go to the right there, and so that would give you -6.1. And so in this instance, you would just subtract those two and keep your negative -6.1, okay? Again, to see more practice and get more practice on that, go to Chapter 2, Lesson 3, Subtracting Real Numbers. Okay, so adding real numbers, subtracting real numbers, and we've done a lot of this in class, a lot for homework, so I think most of us are pretty comfortable on this, but please just make sure. And then finally 2.4, 2.5, and 2.6. Basically, that's multiplying real numbers using the distributive property and dividing real numbers. Okay, so 2.4, multiplying real numbers. Again, you'll need to know multiplying let's say it's negative 15 times positive 4. If you see something like that, you know that a negative times a positive is a negative, and 15 times 4 is 60, so the answer would be negative 60. Okay, I think these are some of the exact problems actually that you had for an assignment last week. When you're multiplying and dividing positive and negative numbers, remember, when you have the same sign, all right, I won't do it that way, I'll do it this way. If you have a positive times a positive, or a negative times a negative. So in other words, the same sign, two positives multiplied together or two negatives multiplied together, you're going to get a positive answer. That's kind of sloppy and weird, but I think you get it. A positive answer, okay? If you have different signs, so a positive times a negative, I'll separate this here, a positive times a negative or a negative times a positive, different signs, you are going to get a negative for your answer. I'm not even sure if you can see that. Yep, there you go. So just know when you're multiplying the same signs, whether they're both positive or both negative, you'll get a positive answer. When you multiply the signs and they're different, like in this case, a negative times a positive, your answer will be negative, okay? Make sure you grab onto that. And the same applies for when you are dividing, okay? Now, you won't just be multiplying straight up numbers. Well, you will, but what I mean is you'll also need to use the distributive property. So you won't always see it like the example I just gave you, negative 15 times 4. You may see, just like in your homework last week, negative 3 times the quantity y plus 9, for instance. So you'll need to know, applying the distributive property or distributing the negative 3 to the y and to the positive 9. So negative 3 times y is negative 3y, and then negative 3 times positive 9 is a negative times a positive, two different signs, becomes a negative, and then 9 times 3 is 27. So negative 3y minus 27 would be my answer, okay? If you're not sure about this or kind of forgot it or not feel comfortable, go back to 2.5 is where that is, distributive property, okay? And last but certainly not least, dividing real numbers. That is in lesson 6 of chapter 2. Again, when you are dividing numbers that have the same sign, so they're both positive or both negative, the sign for your answer is going to be positive. But if it's a different sign, so negative divided by positive or positive divided by negative, that will give you a negative answer, okay? Same rule as the multiplication there. But for instance, let's say you are dividing 56 divided by negative 4 is the example here. I'm putting in parentheses, so I don't think it's divide, subtract. 56 divided by negative 4, well, I have two different signs, a positive and a negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative. And then 56 divided by 4 is going to give me 14, so negative 14 would be my answer. You will also see some problems where you have to divide fractions, and we talked about that. So for instance, negative 6, I'm looking at number 44 on page 124. Negative 6 divided by, what does that say, 3 over 13. Okay, so knowing that when you divide, and technically you're dividing fractions because this is the same as negative 6 over 1, right? So when you're dividing fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. In other words, you take the second fraction or the second term here and you reciprocate it or you flip it, the inverse, and then you change that to multiply. So that would become negative 6 times 13 over 3, okay? I just flipped this and changed the sign, all right? And now because I know negative 6 is the same as negative 6 over 1, I can simply cross multiply, or excuse me, cancel out. 3 goes in 3 one time, 3 goes in negative 6 two times. Don't forget my negative is there. Don't lose that sign or your answer will be wrong. And then I can simply just cross multiply here. 13 times negative 2 is negative 26 over 1. So my answer would be negative 26, okay? So that's basically that. And the only other thing I would remind you of is if you have a division problem where it's written, the whole thing is written as a fraction. For instance, 24x minus, I'm looking at what number am I looking at? 47 on page 124. Let's say it's 24x minus 40, and all of it is over 8. And it says to simplify the expression. Okay, so I'm going to know that this is the same as 24x over 8 minus 40 over 8. That 8 applies to both terms. I just kind of chunked it apart there, all right? And then I can simply just cancel out like this. So 8 goes in 8 one time, 8 goes into 24 3 times, 8 goes into 8 one time, 8 goes into 45 times. So 3x, don't forget your variable, 3x minus 5 over 1, or just 3x minus 5 should be my answer. Yep. So I don't have to put that over 1. Actually, I prefer you not to because that's understood. So it's just 3x minus 5. Okay. If that was confusing to you or you missed something, go back and play it again. Go look in chapter 2 or email me or text me, call me. We can chat online or whatever to make sure you get it. All right. I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.